Stay tuned. Stick with us. Nevada Patriot Podcast. We welcome Sheriff Sharon Wehrly. Don't turn that dial.
Attention, Southern Nevadans. Turn up that dial for some real talk about the issues that matter to us. From some of our valley's local leaders, business owners, and even the occasional elected official. Airing now on incredibly intelligent local radio stations and streaming worldwide at the NevadaPatriot.com. Welcome to the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler.
Welcome to the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler. We have another great episode for you today. Election season is fast coming to a close with early voting starting October 22nd and Election Day November 8th. With me in our studio, we have Sheriff Sharon Wehrly, seeking re-election as Nye County Sheriff. Welcome to the show, Sharon.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here.
So if you ask anyone in Pahrump or anywhere in Nye County, they are very interested in our sheriff's race. I'd say this specific race has easily garnered the most interest of any on our ballot. I'm sure most voters know some of your background, but tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, Sheriff.
Well, I was born.
That's a good thing.
Actually, I was born in Southern California during World War II. And so that makes me very old. I was born to a military family. And I've been all over the place, obviously. Every time my dad would get stationed someplace, we'd end up picking up roots and moving. Yeah. And so I was born in California and moved to New Mexico right away. And then moved back to California, been to close to Canada, close to the Mexican border, on the East Coast, a couple of places in between.
Nice.
And, when you do that, you learn a lot about people because you move in schools all the time. Yeah. I went to 3 schools in 1 year when I was in 3rd grade. It was kind of a difficult thing to do. And you still remember that because, it's trauma every time you walk into a new classroom. Yeah. Well, I did all that through my freshman year. And then I graduated from Mount Vernon, Washington High School.
Awesome. And then you have roots that are actually very deep in Nye County.
Yes. Well, my parents decided that they were going to have a bar. They chose Beatty, Nevada to do that. So I came down from Washington State and was barely 21, and I helped them tend bar. I was definitely no bartender, but I had a really good time. And I met a guy and married him. He was deputy sheriff here, and we had 2 kids. We moved down here because it was closer to Mercury, and that's where he worked.
Right.
And it's just kind of a story since then.
Yeah.
As soon as I walked into to Pahrump, it was like walking into a family. It was very, very nice. They always needed help, volunteer help. So right away I got involved in the Fall Festival. A couple of years later I got involved in building an ambulance crew. There were 6 of us that went through the prim course and then the EMT course. So we were the ambulance crew. Before that, the ambulance was parked next to the bar and the soberest drunk took you into the hospital. We didn't think that was a good idea. So that was changed. In about 1975, in June, the Search and Rescue, Southern Search and Rescue, was created, and that was by J.C. Howard, who was sheriff at that time. And so I joined that, and then in October he had the reserve, a deputy reserve program, and so I joined that. At the same time, I went to work for Wackenut Services Incorporated Now you're going to ask, why didn't I go to work for the sheriff's office? Well, because they were making $5.50, $6 an hour, and Wackenhut paid me $9.50, almost $10 an hour.
Big difference back
Big
then,
difference.
especially.
And by then I was a single mother, and I really needed to make money. So I worked for Wackenhut Services for a lot of years, and some of the things I did for them, it was a paramilitary organization. So I became an armorer and a firearms instructor for the M60 machine gun, for M219, and on and on and on.
Nice.
Anyway, Sig Sauer, Glock, M203 grenade launcher, M79 grenade launcher.
Wow.
Went to tactical school. Eventually went to SWAT school. Went to Air Force Base in Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico. So back to New Mexico. And the people who the Department of Energy chose to teach their SWAT class happened to be LAPD and Dade County. So those were our adjunct instructors. So we jumped off of tall buildings in a single bound, and we went up tall buildings with the help of our teammates, and we crawled, low crawl, high crawl for half a mile here and there. And of course we were running and doing all the other things that was necessary.
Nice.
One really cute story though, I was the only girl. So we were rappelling off of a building, and we had MP5s at the time. So we had windows. So you'd go down, you'd swing up to a window, you'd take your shots, because there were targets inside, good guys and bad guys, and then you went on down. There was that one was a 40-foot tower. Well, when we got done with that, they decided that we were going to do an 80-foot tower, but we were going to do it Australian rappel. I don't know whether you know anything about Australian or not.
No idea.
But you actually walk off the side of the building and you're looking at the ground.
Wow.
And we also had our MP5s at that point, and we took our shots from above the window into the rooms. So that was an interesting experience.
Yeah.
One of the guys that was lighter than I was got stuck. You see, the rope weighed more than he did, so he got stuck halfway down, and we had to actually pull him down off of there. And the instructor's yelling, belay, belay. And so we're trying to belay him to get him down. And it was very difficult because the rope weighed more than he did to get him off the building.
Physics problem. Huh?
Yeah. So anyway, that's some of the things I did. Later on, I was the counterintelligence officer. I was the convoy commander, basically a SWAT commander that we escorted nuclear weapons here and there.
Yeah.
I've done all kinds of interesting and wonderful things.
Oh.
Facility security, computer security, classified computer security. I don't know. I can just go on and on and on with that. Technical security countermeasures, physical and technical security. I was a veterinary technician at one time.
Wow.
Yeah. And I managed to show dogs for a lady by the name of Olivia Fowlis in Portland, Oregon. I was 18, and she was a big breeder of German Shepherds, and the German Shepherds were taught to attack. They were police dogs, so I got involved in that a little bit. So I've got kind of a rounded background.
No, that's good.
As well as being in planning and being a training analyst and curriculum developer and all that. We developed a class an academy actually, for the Department of Energy because the Department of Energy had 12 different sites, and everybody was taught different things as far as the protective force was concerned. So we brought all of those things together by job task analysis, and then wrote an academy on all like skills. So that gave reciprocity throughout all of the DOE sites. So if we had a big demonstration, say, and we needed people from another site, they were already trained. All we had to do was give them our quick site-specific stuff, and we could call from all over. And we did that a lot.
You just plug people in.
Yeah.
Nice. So tell us some of your goals if you're re-elected sheriff for a third term here.
Well, actually, I do have some.
Okay.
And I'll just kind of read them off to you. And anybody can get this because it's on one of my flyers. I'm really calling this Phase 3. Phase 1 was getting the sheriff's office infrastructure back up to where it could support moving forward. And we did that by redoing all of the policies and procedures, and we did a floor-to-ceiling audit to try to get everything back into compliance with legislation and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Phase 2 then was to try to get the detention centers up and running. I don't know, as you probably know, I don't know whether you do or not, but in 2015, the BOCC shut down the Tonopah Detention Center.
Yep.
And so one of my goals was to get that detention center up and running. Well, it took me almost 4 years to do that because that happened in March, and I got it up and running in February of 2019.
Yep.
But that was completely redoing everything in the detention center, including new boilers. And then we went out, we got an ICE contract, which was really difficult to get, which allowed me to hire 35 new jobs. And about 7 or 8 of those jobs went to Tonopah to open up that facility. So we got that facility open, and we augmented the facility down here because they were running in a very unsafe condition. What they had done in 2010, when this jail opened, they took the people from a 35-bed facility, and you can still see it, still sitting there, and they moved that same contingent of people over to run a 242-bed facility.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
five
you know,
times the, or more than that.
Yeah, so
almost 6 times the.
the county is kind of a poor county, and so they did everything that they could do, to put Band-Aids everywhere, but it still was very unsafe.
Yeah.
And so it was unsafe for the inmates, and it was unsafe for the people that were working there. And so with the ICE, I was able to staff it the way that it's supposed to be staffed. Of course, that doesn't take in the people that are on FMLA and vacation and sick leave, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But basically, we have a good staff now, and it's safe for the inmates, and it's safe for our staff. And we were able to get a medical contract. The first medical contract we got in 2016, and that was with Dr. Reiner, and it was only an 8-hour deal. So in 2019, we were able to get 24/7 medical
Nice.
in both jails, and also mental health. So they do telemedicine and they do mental health in both places now.
In both, okay, nice.
Yes. So that brings us up to Phase 3, and that is complete assessments and corrective actions for accountability and credibility for the administrative staff, command staff, and patrol. And I had started that. And that's where I got an awful lot of pushback. The things that happened to facilitate that, in 2018, we started testing our body-worn cameras, knowing full well that the state was going to make that mandatory. So we had enough money to be able to do that, and with the PSST funds and whatnot. And so we went ahead and we bought body-worn cameras.
Yeah.
Well, that really raised a stir. And they didn't like that. You know, I mean, they thought Big Brother was looking at them. Actually, it's for their own protection.
Yeah.
That way there's no more he said, she said stuff.
Right.
You know, the camera is what the camera sees. And that's the truth. This is the way this person acted, and this is the way this person acted. We've added a lot of stuff since then, but going back to 2018, the union, which was one union at that time, was the NCLEA, which was the deputies union, and the sergeants were in that union, did not support me. They supported the mayor. Okay? And the major reason was they were not happy with moving forward into the 21st century. And after that, I put cameras on their guns. I put cameras all the way around their vehicles. And the cameras around their vehicles, dispatch could look through those cameras to see what was going on. And the reason for that is because officer safety is paramount. If you have a dispatcher trying to get a hold of a deputy and they're not answering, and they're not answering, and they're not answering, and they're not answering, that's when the dispatcher can look into those cameras and say, you know, is this guy out with somebody that he didn't call out? We don't know where he is, or he did call out and he's just not giving us the checks that we need. Can we see him?
Yeah.
You know, where is he? Now we have GPS on the cars, so we can go get him.
Yeah.
20 years ago, that was out of the question. We
Yeah.
had no idea where anybody was. 5 years, we had no idea where anybody was. Now we do.
Yeah.
And so they didn't like that too much. There's a lot of other things that we've done. We put MDCs, which is the mobile data centers, in their vehicles. So now they can see what's going on with all the calls. The sergeants can manage those calls right from their patrol car.
Nice.
And they can write their reports from the patrol car. So those are the various things that we've done. Now what we're trying to do is ensure accountability, and with accountability comes accredibility.
Right.
You know? Because I want to move them up where this department can be accredited. Now, to step back a little bit, the detention centers, in order to get the ICE contract, we had to be accredited by ICE. In other words, they come in, they do outside audits, sometimes 3 or 4 times a year. Then we have the ADA, which also comes in and does an outside audit. I want to get them, the patrol, administrative staff, and the command staff in that area where they're used to being audited. They're used to people looking at them. And that was one of the reasons that we started with Live PD, you know, and now on patrol, because I want to get them used to people looking at what they're doing.
Yeah.
And besides that, it brings in a lot of folks that want to join
Yeah.
Nye County Sheriff's Office. It's
Yeah,
a good recruitment tool.
I would imagine. I mean, we don't watch much television. I think we watch Tucker Carlson and On Patrol Live, and that's the extent of our entertainment. And not only entertainment, but I think the transparency with the officers, with the deputies, I think it's paramount, and I think that's a good thing for the public to be able to hone in. And I would hope that the deputies and the officers understand that and appreciate that. That level of transparency is good for the public, and it's good for them, because like you said, I think that morale, because we talk about retaining and keeping, you know, deputies in our county and not letting them get out. I think that's a great PR thing, and I think it casts Nye County in a good light, because growing up in Las Vegas and when we moved here, people would say, well, there's you know, what about the crime in Nye County and this and that and drug use? And I'm like, it's everywhere. And I think this show actually does highlight that. So whether it's Florida or Indiana, they struggle with the same problems we do in different ways, but they still struggle with that. So I think that's in the way that the officers and the deputies handle themselves on the show. And I'll plug Murphy there. He does a really good job. I think he is a good example for our community, showing, what a good patrol lieutenant can do. And so hopefully we keep that going in the goodwill with the production staff there. But
well, let me finish answering your question. The other thing is I want to lay the groundwork to expand the prompt detention facility. See, when it was built to expand.
Okay.
So you see that one rotunda there. Well, there's a second rotunda that goes on the other side of it.
Can I ask real quick, how many beds does it hold now, or how many what's the capacity, I guess?
Well, it's 242 beds.
Oh, okay.
But we've actually put boats in it. And boats are other bed, they call them boats, but they're little bed areas.
Okay.
That can be taken in and out of the cells.
Oh, gotcha.
And we've had to do that a couple of times.
So there's a need then, an imminent need for expansion, it looks like.
Well, yes, but that's because we have a classification system. So inmates are classified when they come in, whether they're violent or whether they're in there for sexual assault or whatever they're in there for, has their own category. And so then they're placed in with like people.
Yeah.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the idea now is to identify and obtain funding to be able to do that. The other thing I want to do is implement some new technology for crime scene preservation, traffic control and identification, and increased agency transparency, because there's other things out there that we can do to make us a little more transparent.
Gotcha. It's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Then of course on the employee side of the house, I'd like to continue the upward mobility for the sergeant and lieutenant and the captain's position. All those can be done by putting in acting people and have them actually do that job with oversight. So I've been doing that for the last couple of years, and it seemed to have worked out very well.
Yeah.
So I'd like to keep doing that and push it a little bit more. And right now I have oversight for the animal shelter. So we're trying to get all the policies and procedures put together for that. And hopefully one of these days it'll be kind of a standalone. I'm kind of looking forward to them standing alone and being their own entity. But right now they're not.
Gotcha.
Right now they're under the sheriff's office blanket.
Yeah.
And then, we have our ACOs, and I don't want to lose control of the ACOs because we need them. When we didn't have control of them, they were very hard to get out when we had SWAT events, and I don't want to have animals hurt, so I want someone there who knows how to handle those animals and get them out of harm's way before anything happens.
Gotcha.
And so that's worked out very, very well for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So switching some gears here in our talk, you had a special event recently at the senior center. Here the attendance was fantastic. You want to share a little bit of your thoughts?
Well, that was yesterday, and I was really surprised because usually there's about 35, 40, maybe 45 people there to come eat. And I hosted the dinner, or the lunch, and there were 99 people there.
Nice.
And I was shocked because, they serve either soup or salad first, your choice. And they all stopped eating and actually listened to what I had to say and had questions.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. It was great. I loved it.
That's nice. Yeah.
I didn't get out of there I think I was there for almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah. I've gone to, usually it's like not even half that long, probably, if they have a speaker, any times that I've gone. So that's good that you kept them captive that long, for sure. And also in that same vein, as far as support systems, and I know from running for office a few times in my life that's an important thing. So your support system, your surrogates, people that are helping you out. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your support system, family, other folks that are supporting you in your campaign?
Well, I'll tell you what. We put on an event at the Nugget here some time ago, on the 10th. Mm-hmm. And without that support system, that would have been absolutely impossible. And it was a terrific event. Janice Maruzio put a lot of it together. My son John put a lot of it together. I had several other people. Joe Berdinski was really helpful. He was my MC.
Yeah.
And, I've known Sheriff Mack for a lot of years now. And I was his MC on one of the things that he did at Liberty University in Virginia. And so he is supporting me totally. And he came out to support me in this event. And then David Hebert came up from San Bernardino, I think is where he is now. And he supported me. He ran against me in the 2018 election. Yep. And then Diane Souter and Eric stepped up. And it was just great. It was a really good event.
Yeah.
It was endorsed by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And also by Eric and Diane.
Nice.
And David. And of course, Sheriff Mack. David Rubinger endorsed me, but he wasn't able to be there. He is a longtime lieutenant for the Nye County Sheriff's Office. He retired, a good 10, 12 years ago. Gone under bigger and better things, as he puts it. But I worked with him for about 20 years.
Nice. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back here in the studio with Sheriff Sharon Wehrly. Stick around. We're going to hear a quick community acknowledgement. We'll see you in about a minute. Hey Pahrump, it's Matt Sadler here. Tune into FM 97.7 KPFF every Saturday at 6 p.m. for real talk and real conversations about the things that matter. The Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler will feature topics and conversations with business leaders, faith-based leaders, elected officials, political candidates, and important issues that are changing our society forever. You don't want to miss an episode. You'll be able to catch replays of our show throughout the week at 4 p.m., streaming worldwide at godfather.media. If you have suggestions for topics or you're a business looking for acknowledgement opportunities during our show, call the station toll-free at 1-877-PAHRUMP. Until the next episode, Nevada Patriots, God bless. And we're back in studio with Sheriff Sharon Wehrly. Thank you for sticking around the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler. So, moving along, I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell our listeners about some of the key programs in the agency during your tenure here.
Oh, let's see. Well, when I came into this office, let's talk about the canines first. We had no certified canines at all. We had canines, but they weren't certified to do anything. And the reason for that, I have no idea. Okay. But I did read a piece in the paper, and I'm going to bring this in because I think it's crucial, that Sheriff DeMayo wrote. It was in May of 2014. And it talked about some of the things that had happened in his department. And so when I came in and did an audit, I found a lot of things that were wrong and in his department. And that letter really answered all my questions. And I didn't know about that letter until, I guess almost the primary, this last primary. So that letter's been hidden that long, and I think if people really want to know what's going on in the Sheriff's Office, they need to go back to the archives of the Pahrump Valley Times and look that letter up. Okay? But the canines weren't certified. We did get them certified. We went so far to get a master handler and a judge. Our judge decided that he didn't want to be a judge anymore, and so that left kind of a hole. That was within the last, last year? Yeah, within this last year. And then we had one of our master handlers leave for another job, and so we just sent another officer to get both things done. And so now we have a master handler again, and we have a judge again, and our dogs on the street are certified, and the two new dogs that we have just gotten will be certified shortly, because the judge and master handler that we now have is putting together an academy for them. Now, this isn't our first academy, so he has something to go on, but he's adding to that, and that academy will start shortly, and they'll be in training as soon as we get all of the equipment that they need to do that training, and everything's ordered. So we'll be back up to 5 dogs, and I just spoke with the Department of Energy, 2 days ago. We had a dog out there, and that dog was a patrol dog and drug dog. They decided that they don't want one of those, that they'd really like to have a bomb dog instead. And so we're going to work on that.
Nice.
And SWAT wasn't certified to do anything. They had never gone to a SWAT class. Everything that they'd had was all taught in-house. Okay? So I changed that right off. They went to FBI school, SWAT school, and they've taken FBI SWAT school refresher training, and then for the new people, they've gone through the whole course every 2 years since I took over. And then I sent them to a class that the Department of Defense, one of their contractors, put on, and that included rappelling and just basically what I told you I went through with SWAT, because they'd never done that. So they went through that, a different type of building clearing. Then about 3 weeks ago, I sent them to Metro, and they went through training with Metro SWAT. And so now I think they're pretty well rounded.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to have new people coming in, and we're going to do the same thing with them. So our SWAT team is pretty good shape. I also bought them new SWAT gear, which is state of the art. They can move in it instead of those turtle shell things they had. That was very restrictive.
Yeah.
Movement was very restrictive, and they were very heavy. So now they have something that they can actually move the same way that Metro SWAT and most of the other SWAT teams are into right now.
It's time's of the essence. And if
Yes,
that frees you up,
it
saves
is.
you a split second, that's all it takes sometimes for success.
And the other thing that we did is I got a Bearcat, which is an armored vehicle. It's a personnel carrier, basically like the old personnel carriers for the military, but it's a non-military vehicle. And we've added that to our arsenal of vehicles. So now they have something that will protect them.
Yeah.
And we've used it a couple of times to go in and pick up people that were pinned during shooting.
Wow.
And gave them a safe way out of that area. And we haven't had anybody hurt, doing that. So we're coming up in the world. We managed to get a mobile command post, and that came really handy during COVID.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
We got that on a grant from NHP, and we had the back end of it. I had a dispatch center, which really we couldn't use, so Brad Adams, our IT guy, made sure that it was set up so that we could use it as a dispatch center. We've used it several times. We used it during COVID. We used it when the building was shut down because there were bed bugs in it.
Oh.
so we moved people outside. And we've used it during Area 51 and taken it down to the park and used it there. So we had our own communications. It's come in very, very handy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of the other programs that we have, one is the Sheriff's Auxiliary Team. When I got here, they had about 20, 25 people. Now we're up to about 40. They do a lot of our traffic control. They do the special events for us. They just provide extra eyes on the street. It's a wonderful program, and we did have 2 people in Tonopah. We're down to 1. And we had 2 people in Amargosa, and we're down to 1. So we're looking for more people in both areas.
It really frees up the deputies to do.
They just help
deputies.
deputies.
It frees them up to focus and
Right.
keep their eyes on the stuff that the deputies need to be focused on, which is great, right?
Well, and it also relieves them in a traffic accident. They
Yeah.
can go and take care of other calls.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's worked out beautifully. We couldn't really operate the way that we do without them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we have about 40 people now down here. We have the RR team, or RT, which is a rapid response team. And we developed that after COVID because we found that we were getting really, really burnt out, and we needed people to be able to call on. Not that they're going to be there every day or work shifts or what have you, but they're there, they're trained. They went through about a 55-hour class.
Okay.
And the SAU goes through an academy also.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not just people taken off the street. They have backgrounds done, and it's a pretty good program. So the RRT is about 40 to 45 people strong. So we have that to pull from.
Yeah, I think we all felt their presence along with auxiliary at the fall festival.
Right.
Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah.
We need eyeballs.
Eyeballs on
those
the
events.
ground.
Yes, for sure.
And then we now have drones. And so we have a couple of drones down here. We have one in Beatty, one in Tonopah,
Nice.
one in Round Mountain.
Yeah.
So people can use that. And they had infrared on them, so that helps.
Yeah, it does.
We also have a SWAT robot. I just got that within the last 6-8 months.
Wow.
And so we can send that in, and it's capable of deploying smoke or CN gas or CS gas. And it deploys it on the robot itself. So if I decide to do that, because those canisters get really, really hot, and I don't want to burn anybody's house down or anything.
Sure.
With those, so I've been very careful with the smoke that we buy, because I don't want it to heat up. But if we needed to use the stuff that heats up and lasts for a little bit longer, that robot's capable of doing that.
Yeah, without risking the life of a deputy. That's awesome.
That's right, and not risking anybody else's life. We're not just shooting it in.
Yeah.
And we don't know where we're shooting or where people are.
True.
This robot has a camera on it, so we can actually get a visual and see what's happening and where we're detonating stuff.
Yeah. Has that robot had to be deployed yet?
We tried to use it on one event, and it was it went too fast for that. So
Gotcha.
we got it out of the truck, and that was about it.
Gotcha.
And it was over.
Well, it's good to have.
So that was a good thing. Nobody got hurt on that one either.
Yeah, better to have the stuff and not need it than to need it and not have it. That's for sure. Changing veins a little bit, Sheriff, as we've all seen, NCSO officials have been subject to sometimes high-profile public scrutiny. If reelected, what would you do, if anything, differently with regard to internal investigations or internal affairs?
Well, let me think about that just a little bit, because all of that stuff is actually basically choreographed. There's a playbook for that. Okay, we're talking internal affairs. We're not talking criminal investigation. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, well, just like any investigation, you have to have someone that actually writes down a complaint. That's how everything starts.
Right.
And there's two ways that we start an internal investigation now. We have what is known as a POARB, and that's a Police Officer Advisory Review Board. Okay, and that's on the citizen side of the house. And then, of course, we have our internal investigations. Now, internal investigations are covered by Police Officer Bill of Rights, which is in NRS 289. And it gives you an outline of what we can and what we cannot do. The unions have taken that just a little bit further, and I have 5 of them, so each one of them is a little bit different. And they have written out according to NRS 289, but they've expanded it, if I'm making myself clear. And what they've done is they've negotiated with the county how their disciplinary action and appeals are actually going to work, okay? So disciplinary action is civil. And a criminal action, of course, is criminal, okay? So there are 2 different avenues. Disciplinary actions are never publicized. We have gotten into that with the Review Journal a bunch of times, and through Mr. Kane, they have wanted a lot of information that we just flat can't give them. However, we have a, what would I call that? An opinion from an attorney now. Her name is Jackie Nichols. And she gave us an opinion that we can release the date that something happened, the officer's name, what they were accused of doing, all the allegations, and what the final dispensation was. And that was focused at one particular case that Mr. Kane was involved in. But if you're going to do that for one case, then all of a sudden that opens the door. We have never done that as the Nye County Sheriff's Office. We've never given out any information. But now, because of that opinion, we're giving out that type of information. And let me read something to you. See if I can find it. It's right here. This is the kind of information that you would get. For instance, 03-15-21 gives you the number of the IA, and then failure to complete employee evaluation based on lack of diligence or efficiency, category A, discipline, written reprimand. So that's the kind of information that you can get now, and you couldn't have gotten that from us before that. So that brings us back to how is it all written down? Well, everything, as I said, is in a CBA, and it takes it from the very, very beginning of what you have to do to how the pre-disciplinary hearing is accomplished. For instance, now you have a complaint, written complaint. That complaint then goes to our IA investigator. The IA investigator calls people in, they do interviews, they then write their report. And I'm making it really simple because there's all kinds of things that they do, but basically this is it. They write their report. That report then goes to the recommender of discipline. Okay, that's a whole different person. That recommender of discipline then goes back through the report, and if they see something that they want to know more about, or that the man hasn't explained it well enough, it'll go right back to the IA investigator to go back and look and see what else he can find. Then it would go back to the recommender of discipline, and the recommender of discipline takes a look at all of the information, all of the evidence, which would be body cam stuff, any witness statements, all of that. And he writes a recommendation of where he thinks this falls in, and we're going back to the CBA, in their particular matrix, their disciplinary matrix.
Right.
Now, in the disciplinary matrix, it has a place where it says that you can either aggravate or mitigate. So if there's aggravating circumstances, he says that these are the aggravating circumstances, and therefore I've knocked it up from an A to a B. Okay? And that's the category. The category then depends on what you can actually punish them and what the punishment is.
Yeah.
And the punishment has been given and negotiated through the CBA, the county. The sheriff never gets to sign off on that.
Right.
That's an agreement between the union and the county, okay? Even though the sheriff might sit on that board and negotiate, the sheriff doesn't get to sign on the dotted line. So they never make an agreement with the sheriff on the CBA,
Yeah.
okay? So that's really the way that works. Then, at that point, the deputy then gets, let's go back way to the beginning. When the complaint comes in, the deputy gets noticed that he's going to be investigated. Okay, so I missed that step. So then we'll go back to the disciplinary action. He finishes that. He allows the attorney to take a look at it. The attorney has the, I won't call it an obligation. Maybe I'll call it a, well, anyway, the attorney can defend his client, the deputy, at that point, and then that's actually put in the body of the recommendation so that I get that right away, okay? When that's over with, then I get the recommendation. He submits it to me, and that's the first time I get to look at the entire case.
Right.
Okay? Now, the case might come in, and I'll ask, does it have enough merit, to send it through this process? And the guy that's asking, which is usually the IA person, will either tell me yes or no and give me a short outline of what happened. And I'll say, okay, go ahead and do an IA. All right? So this is the first time that I get to look at it as a sheriff. And it gets a little more complicated if it's a complaint from a citizen. If it's a complaint from a citizen, then Tim Sutton may get that complaint. Now, I may get it, but Tim Sutton may get it. Mm-hmm. So through the POARB process, he sends that complaint to me, and I automatically, no matter what it is, start an IA. So that's two different things, okay? Then he selects a POARB board, which is made up of citizens that have gone through a class. The county manager does, and we send someone over to give them all of the information. They get the IA report when it's done. They get the complaint itself. They get all of the evidence. They have the right to call witnesses, including the deputy himself, and they make their own case. They do their own investigation, and at the point that they have a recommendation, just like the recommender of discipline has a recommendation he gives me, they give me the same one, okay? When he gets his report done, my recommender of discipline, and the POARB is up and running, they also get a copy of what he has recommended. So they get the entire case before I get the entire case. And then they build their recommendation off of everything that they get. And that comes to me before I make a decision of what I'm going to do. Okay? Now, when the recommendation is given, and that's on this side of the house, there's a form that's filled out at the end of the recommenders, and I brought one for you so that you could take a look at it. At the end of the recommendation, recommender of discipline's recommendation that says, this is what I think needs to happen. Okay? So that, along with his whole file, goes to the POARB, if it's one of those cases that come in from a citizen. And then they give me their recommendation, which I didn't bring a form, but they have another form. And so I take all of that, and I look at it, and I read it, and then I have a pre-disciplinary investigation.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a hearing, actually. And at that time, the deputy comes in, his attorney comes in, and a representative from his union comes in. And they fight for him. They have the ability to bring in additional evidence at that time, or they can bring in witnesses to talk in his defense. And then the attorney generally will give me notes on what he's prepared, which really is helpful, because then I get to take the whole thing and make a decision with the totality of the whole case.
Right.
Now, that is as far as it goes. We give the totality of the case. If the guy is exonerated, it all goes away and goes into the file. Everything goes into the file. If he is disciplined for, say he's a B and he gets 10 hours off, okay? I have the right to waive that 10 hours if I want to. But he's still at a B because it's progressive discipline, okay? I have waived the money portion of it clear up to a C, where they would get 30 hours off, okay? But they still, on their the discipline side, it's still progressed up to a D.
Gotcha.
And then when it hits an E, the E is termination, demotion, and basically that's the same for each one of the CBAs.
Yeah, I think it's important that you mention this, because perception in the public can often become a reality, and if the public is misperceiving the fact that this is a process that's the ball is taken out of your hands, you're subject to other processes, from state legislature down to the bargaining agreements, to the review board, the POARB you mentioned,
Yes.
right?
And that's actually in 289.
Right, and that's important. That sometimes, like you said, you're constrained. You can't comment, or you can't make a ruling or a judgment until the process plays out. But oftentimes the public
Wants
might be,
to know.
I want to know right now.
But the thing is, on
so it's good that
an
you
IA,
cleared that
generally
up.
the public never knows that there's an IA going on, unless the deputy, of course, tells them, or somebody else tells them.
Yeah,
But we're not going to tell them because it isn't any of their business.
yeah,
The other side of this is criminal. Now, that kind of depends upon what kind of law enforcement the community really wants. Personally, I think that if you're accused of crime, just like if a citizen is accused of a crime, you should be treated exactly the way the citizen is treated.
I agree.
Okay? Law shouldn't change because of the job that you have.
Right.
And I don't really care what that job is. I mean, I don't care if you're the mayor of the city. You shouldn't have any other perks that you get that the citizen doesn't get when it comes to the law. It should be straight across the board. So we follow that process. And there is a process with that most people don't understand, that the sheriff's office or any law enforcement agency works on probable cause.
Right.
Okay? Which just means they probably did it. It doesn't mean that we go to beyond a reasonable doubt. And beyond a reasonable doubt is what the DA is looking at when he's looking at the case. Can I prove beyond a reasonable doubt in court?
Yep.
Okay? So the process is you get arrested, you get booked, or you don't get booked, but you get arrested, or the other side of it is there's been a case, you didn't get arrested, you didn't get put on administrative suspension for that criminal act, but now that criminal act is going to go to the DA's office. At that point, it's the same thing as being booked. You go on our little list of being investigated for this particular crime.
Gotcha.
Okay? Which means that it goes out to the public.
Well, thank you for giving some clarity into that. And as we're winding down the time that we have allotted today, I know it's not as much time as you probably like to finish this up, but in a nutshell, 20, 30 seconds, if you want to tell our listeners maybe a point on why you feel like you're more qualified than your challenger for this post.
You know, I have the background and education to do this job. I've been doing it for 8 years, and therefore I know quite a bit more about the job and I didn't learn on the job, okay? I was really prepared for this job by the other jobs that I've had in the past. And also by mentoring of really 2 sheriffs. One in particular was Wade A. Liskey Jr., and I still call him and ask him questions. And right now he's a reserve officer for me. So I have an AA in criminal justice, basic, intermediate, advanced post-certificate, post-supervision, and management certificates. I've been submitted for the executive certificate. I hold the firearms instructor certificate. There's just all kinds of things that I have done that I believe make me a little more viable for this job. Management experience, I was an emergency manager for nuclear and non-nuclear sites, NNSS office manager, special training operations program for DOE. I managed the reserve program as the assistant reserve coordinator for Nye County. I was a criminal analyst for them for a couple of years. I've just done all kinds of various things. I wrote plans for special events for the sheriff's office, ran those special events. And a lot of those people that are working for me now worked for me then and as reserves. Judge Asperson used to work for me as a reserve officer before he hired on.
Yeah, good guy.
So,
I miss him.
I have a huge background. I've been doing this for an awful lot of years, and I think that counts.
Well, thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for enlightening us. And I want to let the listeners know I really appreciate Sheriff Wehrly taking time out of her busy schedule to be here today to interview with us. If you want to learn more information about Sheriff Sharon Wehrly, you can go to her site, SharonWehrlyNV.com, or find the page on Facebook. Again, Sheriff, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for enlightening our listeners. Good luck in the election, and hope to see you again on the Nevada Patriot Podcast in the near future. Thank you, Sheriff.
Well, thank you.
You've just spent some of the best minutes of your life hanging out with Matt Sadler at the Nevada Patriot Podcast. Thank you for listening. Tell a friend and join us next time. After you catch your breath, check out the NevadaPatriot.com for more content, advertising opportunities, and to give listener feedback. That website again is the NevadaPatriot.com. Until next time, Patriots, stay American.